Hey, Larry Elder here. Thank you for listening to The Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt and KHNC.
Okay, hello everybody, this is Cole coming at you today for another episode of the Liberty Revolt in beautiful Cartagena, Colombia. So, ¿cómo están? How is everybody doing? I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. Now, I came here to talk about something that's far away from me now, but actually close to my heart and closer to my brain at the moment, which is a strange little thing called dental amalgam. That's right, dental amalgam. Most of you probably don't know what it is because your dentist never told you. Well, dental amalgam is the metal stuff in your teeth that they put into your fillings when they fill them in. So it's 50% malleable metals. I'm not sure exactly what those are, but what we should really be concerned about is what the other 50% is. And that is elemental mercury. That's right, mercury. I didn't say that wrong, and this is not the benign sort of mercury because there are 3 different types of mercury. Some of them are benign and not very harmful to humans, and some of them are not. Elemental mercury is not benign, and it is harmful to humans at any level of exposure. That's right, any level of exposure to elemental mercury is known to be hazardous to a person's health. Now, we've all heard of people breaking thermometers and being mercury poisoned, or of eating too many fish like tuna in the oceans, fish who end up consuming mercury in the byproducts that we end up dumping in the ocean. So if you eat too much canned tuna, you may end up with mercury toxicity. We've probably all heard of this. And another thing you should know is that back in the day, and by back in the day I mean the Renaissance and beyond, a 300-year period in medieval Europe, people used to use mercury as a sort of treatment for every disease you can imagine. So think about this. You would get yourself a cut, and they would say, oh, well, maybe we should just bleed you first. It's called bloodletting. You just have too much darn blood. And then after that, they would literally rub mercury, elemental mercury, into your wounds because it was seen as a salve to your health. Now, obviously, most people didn't live long enough back in the day to realize that, shoving mercury into their open, seeping wounds wasn't a good idea and was probably not beneficial to their health. But that's a bit of a digression. What we don't know, and what I need to get back to because I brought it up just a minute ago, is dental amalgam. That's right, your fillings are poisoning you. Now, your dentist may not want you to believe that this is the case, and I'll tell you why. Because it's very cheap to make fillings with dental amalgam. They've been doing it for 100 years. They have been filling 175 million Americans' teeth with 50% mercury for 100 years. That's right, half of the American population probably has mercury just sitting in their mouth. Now, obviously, when you swallow and in your spit and things like that, you're not just eating mercury that becomes metabolized into your bloodstream. That's not the way it works. But here's the thing. When you drink hot liquids or chew gum for long enough or do anything that can cause a little bit of the mercury to slough off in the form of a gas, then what happens is you respirate the gas and you may inhale some mercury through your lungs. I think it's said between 8 and 20 micrograms a day of mercury are inhaled through your dental amalgam fillings every single day. That's the average American, 50% of the population who has these amalgam fillings. What's really interesting about this is the response from the ADA. And for those who don't know, the ADA is the American Dental Association. The American Dental Association is one of many government bureaucracies and organizations who oversees the safety elements of various regulated industries within the U.S. Think the FDA, think the EPA, all of the various government bureaucracy agencies we have here in the U.S. Well, the ADA is one of them, and that's the American Dental Association. They have been saying that dental amalgam, is safe. They've been saying it for years. They've been saying it for hundreds of years. Now, the interesting thing about this is if you go on the internet and you look up mercury toxicity, you look up the effects of mercury when inhaled or with any exposure to the metal and how it's toxic to basically all systems. So it's neurodegenerative, just like lead, on a lesser level than lead, but it's neurodegenerative, which means it can basically cause your brain cells to rot and prune and disappear. Also, it can cause Parkinson's, it can cause Alzheimer's, and it's associated with another number of terrible ailments. So why does the ADA keep saying that dental amalgam is safe? It's interesting, and it's really a tale of two narratives, because there was a study done and published at the University of Washington quite a few years ago that said, okay, we followed a number of children with dental amalgam fillings for years versus children without dental amalgam fillings, and we found that there was no cognitive differences between the groups. But then when they looked at the study again longitudinally, they found that the group with the dental amalgam, the group with the mercury in their mouths, the children, when they became young adults or older adults, started performing worse on cognitive tests. So you can see a slow accumulation of this metal from a filling that you may have gotten when you were 13 years old and ate too much candy, having a neurodegenerative effect on you, on your loved ones, once again, on half the American population. This isn't some small sector of the population that can just bring a class action lawsuit against the ADA, although maybe we should all get together and do that. This is half the dang population of the USA breathing in 8 to 20 micrograms of a substance that is not known to be conducive to human health at any level of intake. I would urge you to go online and check out the various wibble-wobbling among the dental and medical community saying, well, no, it's probably fine, and even though other people say that any exposure to mercury is terrible, they have 8 micrograms, what's the big deal? Every single day. You're inhaling it every single day. This is the Liberty Revolt, guys. We will be right back.
The Bucky Dillon Show is a Liberty Revolt Media production. www.libertyrevoltmedia.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Here is the Liberty Revolt again with Cole. I am so happy to be with you once again on this beautiful Sunday. Maybe it's not a beautiful Sunday in Colorado, but it is certainly a beautiful Sunday in Cartagena, Colombia, so I'm very happy to be traveling at the moment. I did a whole episode, almost a whole episode last time about how people who complain about other people traveling at the moment are totally full of BS as long as you understand the precautions to take. And I caught a little flack. Not only from, people who don't want me to travel at this time, but maybe from a few listeners of this station, which is fine. I love people to express their opinions, and I love arguing with people, whether they be people that are close to my heart or far away from me or who are my polar opposites or who agree with me on most things. I love it. And the argument was about me wearing 2 masks. Well, for me, it's a personal thing. They say it's 94% effective against the virus. I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm not an epidemiologist. I really don't know. I'm listening to the experts. Maybe that's a stupid idea, especially when the experts are at the CDC. And this whole episode today is about how you should not trust government agencies with almost anything. So maybe me saying that I trust the CDC's research while at the same time coming on this episode to say that you shouldn't trust anything government agencies do is a bit of a contradiction. I understand that, but at the same time, I just want to let people know. That if they tell me it's irresponsible to travel right now, that they can eat it. That's it. I don't care. I think people need to shut up and start living their lives. How long have we been in this thing? There's already a vaccine. Like I said, okay? Let's have enough of this getting depressed and sitting in our rooms and no human contact and ruining our amygdala because we don't know how to talk to people anymore. Pandemic nonsense. Guys, live your freaking life and live it as safely as you possibly can. Okay, we're getting off that subject now. We're getting back to what I was talking about before. A little something I learned about the other day in Medellin, Colombia, called dental amalgam. Now, it was my dentist in Medellin. That's right, I have a dentist in Medellin. I went there 5 times and they charged me $150 to take out my wisdom teeth. So take that, America. You could fly to Colombia, round trip tickets, stay in an Airbnb for a week, eat whatever you want, go to the bar every night, get your wisdom teeth fixed, fly back, and then buy yourself a fancy meal in the US for less than the price that you would pay without insurance, maybe even with some insurance, to get your wisdom teeth taken out in the US. So take a moment to mull that over, do what you want with it, but if you want some dental work done, I don't know why you would do it in the US if you can fly to Mexico. I'm going to keep going on this tangent for a second. Universities, too, in the US, guys. How much do we pay for that? How much do we pay for university? How much do we pay for healthcare? I went and studied in Thailand for less than the price, everything together. I'm telling you, not just one thing. Everything together in Thailand, the accommodation, the food, the tuition, everything costs less than only the tuition that I would have paid at CSU. So if you're a college student and you're listening to me right now and you don't take the chance to go study abroad cheaply for a semester or two to count towards your degree when it's offered for a cheaper price, then you're being dumb. Don't be stupid and take advantage of the opportunities given to you. We need to think about things like this. Factor in costs, guys. What is an hour worth? What is an hour worth, really? It's worth your time, it's worth your life, and it's the money you trade. So if you're going to trade your money for medical or educational services, I suggest you do that in a place that gives you better value, more bang for your buck, and will allow you to have a good time and travel at the same time. Get out of your comfort zone and go and do it. So part of the reason, believe it or not, that things are so expensive and terrible in the U.S. is not just because of evil corporations. It's also because of government organizations. The heavy regulatory fines and fees and structures and rules that every industry in the U.S. has to abide by to comply with the rules of either the EPA or the ADA, the American Dental Association, or the FDA become draconian, expensive, ridiculous, and beyond that, largely ineffective because these organizations happen to poison people as often as they do anything to make our food safe. Now, the example I was using before for this was the ADA, the American Dental Association, and using dental amalgam for fillings for the past 100 years on half of the American population. Once again, let me iterate, this is elemental mercury. Elemental mercury has not been found to be safe at any level of exposure for human beings. Heavy metal toxicity is a toxicity that you cannot excise. You cannot get rid of heavy metal toxicity because it stores in your brain and in your brain stem and in your tissues, and you can't get it out. Think about this in terms of lead. We all know how harmful lead is, right? Okay, so in Rome, they use lead pipes. And slowly, they think part of the reason that Rome fell, the contribution of human insanity based on lead poisoning from lead pipes in poisoned water, is part of the reason that Rome declined. Now, do we really know that's the case? No, but what we do know is that lead makes you violent, it lowers your IQ, it stores in your brain, you can never get rid of it, and it doesn't get better. When you're poisoned by a heavy metal, any level of heavy metal toxicity, whether it be mercury or lead, you cannot remove it. You can only get worse. Okay? So, let's give you another example of that. Guys, the U.S. used to use leaded gas. Every country in the world did before we knew the harmful effects of leaded gas. And we phased out leaded gas in the United States in the 1970s. Now, there are many reasons posited for the reduction of human violence in the U.S. in the 1990s, and there's no clear reason. But one of the reasons is definitely the fact that people weren't breathing in fumes from lead gas day in and day out anymore. They'd had 20 years to phase out lead gas as the people who were already crazy and lead poison got too old to commit any crimes, and the young people coming up who were born after the phasing out of lead gas were no longer as violent and crazy because they weren't breathing in lead fumes. This example is to illustrate exactly how terrible and dangerous heavy metal toxicity can be for a person. So, are you walking around with heavy metal in your mouth? Well, if you're an American and you like to drink coffee and you like to chew gum and you like to drink alcohol, then there's a 50% chance that you are being poisoned by the mercury in your mouth every single day. I'm going to entreat everybody to go on the internet and read the conflicting studies. That's right, conflicting medical and scientific studies about whether the elemental mercury that is released into your lungs and into your bloodstream from your mouth is harmful or not. I mean, if you really have to go on the internet and scour JSTOR or any other article database to find out whether something is harmful or not, and 50% of the articles tell you, yes, it's going to give you cancer and Alzheimer's, and 50% of the articles say, well, we probably think it's fine, then you should think there's a huge problem. Because here's what liberals like to do, and academia in general likes to do. They like to do something called trust the science. Obviously, we should trust the science, guys. I love trusting science. I love science, and science has advanced humanity more than anything else has. I don't care what you say. Science has advanced humanity far more than religion has. You could argue with me about this all day, and I think I'm going to win with my examples when I say that science kicks the ass of pretty much every other subject on Earth as far as human development and life expectancy and happiness and ease of transportation and communication go. It's almost inarguable. At the same time, because of this, many people in academia say that we need to blindly put our faith in all science, even though they don't know how to read a scientific paper. I want to know if people understand what statistical regression is. Do you understand what happens when you use a small sample size versus a large sample size? When your control group doesn't have enough people? When all of your subjects for a scientific study come from the same city? You get skewed results. And in fact, 50% of social science research cannot be replicated. Okay, think about that. The studies that say, oh, these people are more likely to be psychopaths, or oh, these people are more likely to have a bad time in learning, and whatever studies the social realm in regard to science has a 50% chance of not being replicable. I mean, maybe the study that confirmed that 50% of them aren't replicable is itself not replicable, right? It has a 50% chance too. I don't know. But what this means, folks, is that if we really want to be critical, if we want to be critical thinkers, we need to know when to trust science and when to read a scientific paper and say, wait a minute, what's going on here, right? Because the American Dental Association has been lobbying, right? They have their own lobbyists. Think about that. Government agency with lobbyists. They've been lobbying for the continued use of dental amalgam with mercury, because can you imagine what would happen if the ADA, who has been sanctioning the use of dental amalgam and putting it in people's teeth for 100 years, were to come out and say, oh, we screwed up and we may have given an entire generation of Americans, in fact 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 generations of Americans, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, various cancers, and other forms of terrible malignant diseases, including but not limited to a tendency towards violent behavior and the reduction in IQ and emotional intelligence. Can you imagine if they were to come out and say, sorry, we're kind of responsible for that because we wanted to save money on the fillings that we were giving people? There would be an S-storm that you can't even imagine, and I can't even imagine, because I don't know if something like this has happened in modern history, especially continuing into the 21st century when an agency flubs up so hard that it has poisoned an entire century worth of American citizens, and it continues to do so. Now, can I be completely sure that this 8 to 20 micrograms of mercury that I'm inhaling every hour on the hour, day to day, are actually poisoning me? No. I mean, I'm not a scientist. Once again, I'm not trained in the art of science, but here's the thing. I can read. And I assume most of you guys can read too. And I combed through a great amount of the scientific literature. I looked through abstracts, I read entire papers, I looked at sample sizes and statistical variances, and what many papers found is that when people got their dental amalgam fillings removed, subjective feelings of well-being within 1 to 3 years after getting them removed were almost double those of the people who didn't get the amalgam fillings removed. And for some reason, the scientists in the paper went on to conclude, well, we really have no idea why their subjective feeling of well-being improved so much. It can't have anything to do with the fact that they were breathing in mercury every single day, could it? I mean, maybe they just don't want to jump to conclusions here. But the fact is that the research sits there on the internet without barely anyone coming to the conclusion that, maybe we should do everything we can to reduce our exposure to toxic heavy metals that we can't excise from our body using any method known to modern science. I mean, just maybe that's a smart thing to do. I don't know about you guys, but I really feel like getting the mercury pulled out of my teeth because I like to drink hot coffee and I like to drink alcohol. And these are two things that are going to react and turn the little mercury fillings I have in my mouth into gas that I'm then going to inhale, which I have asthma, by the way, so it's also not good for me to inhale mercury when I have asthma. I don't want to continue with this metal in my mouth, and I don't think you should either. Now, once again, is this medical advice? Am I a doctor? Am I a scientist? No, but I mean, I'm entreating you to go on the internet and read the science for yourself and make the call. And realize that the ADA has a number of very powerful friends in both the medical, government, and scientific community who have a vested interest in saying that it's fine to keep mercury in your mouth. Now, when we come back, I want to talk about a few other wonderful government agencies that I just love so much, right? The FDA, the EPA, and the CDC, and what they've done to poison and harm the American population almost beyond repair in many states and in many cases for life with no financial remuneration. This is the Liberty Revolt. I am Cole, and we'll be right back.
Great minds think alike. Thank you for listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt. Join me, Larry Elder, today at 5 on 1360 KHNC. Now back to Bucky Dillon.
Colorado. Purple Mountain Majesty, clear blue skies, icy glacial rivers which carve out the valleys that we and our families like to inhabit to enjoy the majesty of the mountains around us. Well, guys, I can tell you what, we, the Colorado population, certainly care about keeping our environment at least clean enough not to be toxic, our drinking water at least clean enough from the mountains to be delicious when we turn on our taps, so we don't have to be like a third world country or Flint, Michigan, and go buy bottled water from the store every day. We appreciate that. And you know who should also appreciate that? The government organization who is in charge of keeping the environment clean, who is in charge of, dare I say, protecting the environment. I'm talking about none other than the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Now, prima facie, on the face of it, we would probably say the EPA is a good organization who uses our tax dollars in a way that keeps people from destroying our environment. Guys, the EPA turned a river in Colorado bright chemical orange by literally dumping chemicals into this river in Colorado. They poisoned one of our rivers. The EPA, the one organization responsible for protecting the environment, poisoned one of our rivers over a decade ago. Now, I understand human error is rampant in every agency, in every business. I don't care what business you're in, and I don't care what government agency you work for. Human error is going to result in some terrible things happening. There are no ways to control for every negative externality that happens when you're running something as large and complex as a government bureaucracy. I will credit these guys with that right off the bat. I will give anyone the benefit of the doubt where it's deserved. What I don't understand is how the EPA could poison a Colorado river and then get their lawyers to stand on the dais and say, sorry, we can't remunerate anybody who is going to sue us for this because there's a law on the books which keeps citizens and groups of citizens from bringing lawsuits or class action lawsuits against the federal government. That's right. There's a law that keeps you and from me from suing the federal government. You know who you can sue? McDonald's. You know who you can sue? Nestle, Target, United. Plenty of corporations are willing to fork out millions, if not billions of dollars, settling outside of court to people that they have wronged. Heck, even to people that they haven't really wronged, and they're just too lazy to go up against in court, right? So, when a corporation screws up, when a mining company screws up and they break the law or they cause someone to be catastrophically injured or their livelihood to be sucked away, at least they have to pay money to these people. At least they have to do something. At least they have to see their day in court. They have to send someone. Some a-hole from this company has to get off their butt and hire a lawyer and talk to someone and generally have a bad day dealing with someone they have wronged, as they rightfully should. You know who doesn't have to do that? The federal government. Any government agency, I don't care who it is. If they are a federal government bureaucracy, you can't sue them. You can't sue them. So what are you supposed to do? Here's the deal. The EPA said, get this is the craziest part. After they poisoned one of our pristine and beautiful rivers here in Colorado by turning it bright orange and dumping chemicals in it and ruining tons of people's farms and killing their livestock after they drank the water and just upending their livelihood, they said, we want to pay. We want to remunerate all the poor farmers whose livelihoods we ruined. But we just can't because this law says that you're not allowed to sue the federal government. We're so sorry. We wish we could help. That's right. So, guys, I understand human error. I understand when you do something wrong. But, what fundamentally makes you a human is the fact that you err. To err is to be human, sure. That's what fundamentally makes you a human. But what fundamentally makes you a good, decent human, a human worth, keeping on the planet for the benefit of themselves and other people as well, is being willing to take responsibility when you do something like turn an entire river orange with toxic chemicals and ruin everybody's farm who's downriver. Part of the responsibility of being a human being is, taking responsibility for the things you screw up. You're allowed to screw up as many times as you want. The point is to screw up and you try not to do it again. And you try to make it right. You try to make it whole. But in the case of the federal government, they literally have a law on their books that says even if we want to make you whole, even if we want to help you out and do something and say we're sorry, we can't. We're not even allowed to. How insane is that? The thing is, what about when the federal government has imprisoned someone wrongly for 20, 25 years of their life in incarceration and then they let them go? I believe there's been cases where people may have given a crumpled $5 bill and a Snickers bar and a pat on the back saying we're sorry, but there have definitely been other cases where the federal government paid these individuals millions of dollars. So tell me, where was that law on the books that said you're not allowed to remunerate the people that you have done wrong then? In this case, because it seems to me that there are other cases where people have been wronged grievously by the federal government and have at least in some semblance been made whole again. So where does the EPA get off saying that they want to help and then doing nothing? Where do they get off being the Environmental Protection Agency, destroying the environment, and then walking away and saying our hands are tied, we can't do a darn thing, but we want to? This is insanity. This is the opposite, obviously. This is like Animal Farm, George Orwell's 1984, where you're walking around with blinders over your eyes, someone's prodding you with a cattle prod and saying, you love this, don't you? And you're saying, oh yeah, this is great, this is exactly what life should be about. You're just willfully ignorant all the time because the government tells you to be. Well, that's what happens when a government agency poisons your river and then tells you they can't pay for it and apologizes. I would have more respect for the EPA if they would have just said something like, oh, you know what? We're not going to pay. Nope, we're just not going to do it. You guys can take your grievances and shove it all the way back to your little mountain towns. I would have more respect for them then because at least they're being honest. But, when you do something wrong and then you refuse to make up for it, and then you go against the very mantra of your organization, and then you lie about it, then you suck. You know what, EPA, listen to me. Because of this, almost all the other good things you've done, I think you suck. And I think most Americans would agree that any government agency that has the opposite effect of what it's supposed to do not only sucks, but is a fundamental drain on society. I mean, our tax dollars are literally going to fund the same people who poison our rivers and then refuse to pay for it. Like, I'm sorry, could you use my tax dollars to fix the potholes in my road? I don't care if I'm not there right now. I don't care if I'm not there to drive on them. You guys know it needs done, and I've seen people get it done quickly in other countries. This is the Liberty Revolt, guys. Thank you for tuning in.
欢迎收听 KHNC 广播电台 Bucky Dylan 早安秀，大家的早安广播，谢谢。
And we're back. Hello, everybody. Good to see you again. I am so happy to be here with you on this Sunday morning on the Liberty Revolt. It's always a pleasure to be on the radio, on Facebook, live with you guys, even when I'm not in the country. This is the wonder of science and technology. And that brings in one of the points I was talking about in the last segment, which is just how wonderful science has been in bringing us out of the darkness and allowing us to communicate with each other and live much longer lives. It's been wonderful. But you know what's not wonderful is government agencies who are supposed to use science to make everything better using your tax dollars, but who actually undermine it and poison your children with lead. No, I didn't get the word wrong, guys. I know I was talking about dental amalgam and mercury fillings before. Okay, so the American Dental Association has no problem poisoning your children on a daily basis when they drink hot drinks and some of the dental amalgam and mercury goes into their lungs. They have no problem with that. But you know who even one-upped them? You know who one-upped the ADA in total heavy metal toxicity poisoning roulette? The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration's everybody's favorite organization who for some reason doesn't let us drink non-pasteurized milk in the land of the free. Like, the Brits have been doing it for I don't know how many hundreds of years, but if I want my milk to be creamier, you FDA schmucks can get your darn hands out of the pot. Oh, and why, FDA, do you allow red 50 or 40 to be put in food? Is it because there's a protein boost? You guys are probably confused right now saying, why do you care about red 40 or 50? You know what it is? It's a bunch of small little insects, crushed up. Little red insects. I forget what they're called because honestly, I don't really want to look further into it lest I gross myself out. These insects are crushed up into a paste that's red, and then they throw that into your food. Imitation crab, I think, is one of the primary examples where they use red insect dye to dye the halibut that's supposed to, for some reason, be crab. So your imitation crab is actually thousands of small little insects and halibut that's probably eaten too many mercury scraps from the bottom of the ocean. So you're going to chew up your fish mercury with your teeth mercury and have your bugs at the same time. Can we just thank the ADA, the EPA, and the FDA for this, guys? What a wonderful crab fettuccine Sunday we're all going to have now. Okay, sorry about that. I really shouldn't have ruined your day by telling you about these things. But it goes to show that organizations like the FDA, we may think they're competent. And let's be fair, they are competent in some things, right? I mean, who knows what food manufacturers would be slipping into our food and red meat and stuff without the FDA. Sure. So they serve a purpose and we probably need them. But hey, guys, can you do a better job? Like, oh my God, do we really need to have crushed up bugs in our food? Why are there allowed to be 6 maggots for every can of tomatoes I eat? Why are there allowed to be like 8 ounces of rat feces in my jar of peanut butter? I don't get that. Like, can you guys just do a little bit better? But that's not what I'm here to talk about. Remember, well, it is what I'm here to talk about. But heavy metals are what I really want to get on today. So recently, very recently, it's been found out that there are crazy unsafe levels of lead in baby food. Baby food! Think about it. Guys, an infant's brain is so much more sensitive to lead toxicity than an adult's brain. Oh my goodness. This is the critical window when you're acquiring language and fine sensory motor skills and all the little things that are going to make you a charming human being for the rest of your life are being imprinted in your little memory when you're just a child. And now, it's been found out that the FDA hasn't been doing enough to regulate the food industry to check for lead? The fact that any baby in the US and any parent who goes to the store is risking lead poisoning for their child in a supposedly first world country with an organization like the FDA overseeing them is appalling. It's disgusting. It's sick. I have criticized many countries and many places for not doing enough to get lead out of their pipes, to get lead out of their water, to get lead out of the freaking stagnant ditch by the side of the road. And I think with good reason, because once again, what does lead do? It makes you emotionally stupid. It makes you violent. And it makes you dumber in general. It lowers your IQ. It lowers your ability to solve complex and simple problems. Lowers your ability to solve math and reason on a higher plane of critical thinking. It basically makes you less of a human being. It makes you a threat to society. And the fact that the very organization that is responsible for the safety of people's food in this country would allow our most vulnerable people, infants, your children, to be lead poisoned by the time they can't even talk or think for themselves during the critical window of development enrages me. It makes me so mad that my tax dollars may have gone not only to fund plenty of the other things that I can't stand, like putting mercury in my teeth, but to put lead into little babies. Guys, I'm sorry, this makes me emotional. It really does. This is disgusting behavior. And like I said, if this was a private company who was doing this, and in some cases it is, who's coming out with the food, if this was a private company who was responsible for the low amounts of oversight that you're seeing in this industry, at least there could be a lawsuit action taken against them. But once again, the FDA is the federal government. You're not allowed to take a class action lawsuit against them. So I just think we really need to sit down and think about where our tax dollars go and whether government agencies are a good thing. If you really want to ruin your day, go ahead, go on the internet and look up captured agencies. And these are basically government agencies who become subservient to the corporate interest that they were designed to protect against. These are literal government agencies in the US who are basically working with and for the corporation like a cartel. That's what happened in Mexico at the beginning of the drug war, is the cartels basically own the government. Well, in this case, the corporations pretty much own branches of the government. When you get yourself a captured agency, go look it up. I don't need to give you information about this because it's readily available on the internet. Like I said, guys, if we really want to make government bigger, this is the Liberty Report.
All of the music for the Bucky Dillon Morning Show was provided by my band, Beer for Bears. Find us on social media by looking for Beer for Bears.
Welcome back, everybody. What if I told you that the US government was partly responsible for COVID-19? You'd probably be mad at me, right? Well, prepare to get angry, because back in, I think, 2017 and before, the Obama administration and the CDC, Dr. Fauci, gave the Wuhan lab, the super lab, that COVID probably came out of, because I don't buy the fact that it came out of a market 100 meters away. I mean, I'm not stupid, and I know how to read, right? Unlike some of the kids who are going to come up this day and age because the FDA has poisoned their food with lead, okay? I know how to read, and I know how to look for information on the internet about how the US government gave the lab in China millions of dollars to study coronaviruses. Yeah, the CDC, government agencies. Wow. Once again, the government agency that's responsible for preventing things like global pandemics are on the forefront of helping one emerge. The agency that's responsible for protecting the environment is destroying our rivers. The agency that's responsible for protecting you from harm in your food is poisoning your children with lead. And the agency that is responsible for your dental health is filling your mouth with heavy metals that are not safe at any level. Next time a liberal tries to argue with you about the fact that we need bigger government, that we need more government in here to fix all of it, we just need to throw more money into a government agency, I think we need to look at them and say, there are some very specific examples here of terrible things. And guys, I can give you thousands of examples of terrible corporate actions too. I mean, they're all over the place. But here's the deal. There's no fix-all solution here. Whether it's a corporation or a government agency, people are staffed by greed. People are corruptible. People tend to do a terrible job, and especially when they have no accountability, they tend to do some pretty bad things. They cut corners. And in this case, the corners might just be your drinking water, your baby food, your dental fillings, or your life, in the case of funding a Chinese super lab. So I hope I've at least opened your eyes on the dangers of government agencies and the fact that, we shouldn't trust these guys. I don't trust the government. I don't know why anybody does. I don't trust corporations either. Okay? I don't trust anybody, really, but to think that trusting completely either corporations or the governments is going to fix our problems is ludicrous. So there's some ammunition against big government. I hope you guys have had